to religions that's not poisoned by that notion teaches reincarnation. The American Indians pretty much taught it. The Aztecs, we'll find out the Mayans taught it. The mystery schools of the Platonists, the Hermeticists, the occult esotericists of Europe, they all practiced the idea of reincarnation.
Based on fear, like persecution, like you're going to go to hell if you do this.
Yeah, yeah. And there were many councils throughout Christian history particularly, where they excised or they deleted any reference to reincarnation. And it was a political move. Anyone else like to read?
Would it also be because of the habits of the Western people, especially slaughtering animals and eating them?
Absolutely.
That's finer, it destroys the finer sentiments and the finer process of thinking. Srila Prabhupada said that that it's impossible for a meditator to understand the science of the soul.
Can you hear this? Also in the ninth I think it's the ninth canto, it says Nirvirtatar Sara Rupagiyamana Bhavosha Shota Mano Viramat Ka Uttama Shloka Ganarnavaradat Kumandar Jeta Vina. That only a person who is a killer of his own soul or a meat-eater will not have the finer intelligence to sit down and pay attention to the Uttama Shloka, the Uttama Shloki, the glorification of the Supreme Person. So, as Prabhu is describing, the more we engage in violence and acts of wanton murder, call it animal slaughter, 100%. The more we suffer the inability to contemplate Atma Tattva. Is that okay? Everybody understand that? Okay. Anyone like to read Pythagoras? Can you see? Who would like to read? Come on, help me, please.
Among the ancient Greeks, reincarnation was a doctrine closely associated with the followers of the philosophers and mathematicians. Pythagoras, according to a Pythagorean teaching, the soul survives physical death. After a series of reincarnations, each one following a period of psychic cleansing in spiritual environments, the soul becomes free eternally from the cycle of reincarnation.
So that's not a quote, but it's a summation or a synopsis of Pythagorean thought. Now, some people have actually put forward the idea that Pythagoras was not just one individual, but a whole school of philosophers. And there's a lot of evidence for that. Next, who would like to read? Come on.
Let's say George Gregory.
Yeah, nice and loud, please.
Every soul comes into this world strengthened by victories or weakened by defeats of a previous life. The soul is immaterial and irreversible in nature. It at one time puts off one body and exchanges it for a second and another.
Thank you. Comments? Questions? Isn't this like straight out of the Bhagavad Gita? And this is 4th century Europe. I don't think these men were reading the Bhagavad Gita, but they cottoned on to something of a universal truth. Anyone else like to read Chief Seattle? Come on.
There is no death, only a change of words.
Isn't that interesting? That statement in itself, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8 words, carries more philosophical content, I would say, in that it clarifies the issue of death than virtually the entire Abrahamic tree. What a rude statement I just made. But when you look at it, we are very profoundly confused, aren't we? Am I a Christian soul? Am I a Muslim soul? Is God a Muslim? Is God a Jew? Does God care about Ramadan? Does God care about Yom Kippur? Does God really care about Palestine or Israel? Or Zionism? Of course not. But this is the kind of muddle we suffer if we believe in the covenants of religionism. But this statement, there is no death, that's a scientific statement. Why? Because science is proving that consciousness is completely independent of the mind, body, intelligence, ego, senses, and the environment. And is still conscious and is still in an implicate position to control the material energy. And that's why I think it would be good, if you have the time, please examine this film, The Day I Died. It's a documentary spin-off of that £10 million a bursary or a research grant that was given to a group of cardiologists and anesthesiologists in England who were studying near-death and out-of-body experiences. And you can see in this documentary how many different ways certain groups of scientists refuse to practice Occam's razor and keep it simple and admit the presence of the soul. But
You have that document?
I don't have that documentary. It's on YouTube. I wasn't able to download it, but you can see it any old day of the week if you go on YouTube and type in The Day I Die. I would have liked to have shown you a little bit of it. Carl Jung, would anyone like to quote? Please?
Okay. My life often seemed to me like a story that has no beginning and no end. I had the feeling that I was a historical fragment, an excerpt from which the preceding and succeeding text was missing. I could well imagine that I might have lived in former centuries and there encountered questions that I was not yet able to answer, that I had been born again because I had not fulfilled the task given me.
Isn't that interesting? Do you see the common golden threads between all schools of genuine philosophy? This is the truth, ladies and gentlemen. This is what science is teaching us. This is what philosophy is teaching us. And this is what tradition is teaching us. And yet, mainstream scientists like Richard Dawkins and Stephen Hawking, again, on the front page of the Times, he says, philosophy is dead. How much airplay did they give to these uniformed ministers of truth? And how little airplay they give to people like Ian Stevenson. We're going to talk about him in a minute. So I'm going to read here just a paragraph, and anyone else who would like to jump in, you can read. I hope you'll enjoy this. Jung's theory of the collective unconsciousness, a shared pool of memories that may be inherited from ancestors, which he believed coexists with the individual unconscious recollections, is clearly related to the theories of reincarnation, although most scientists and psychiatrists would strongly deny it. His ideas echo what the Vedas described as the Akashic field, or divine archive, the cosmic memory bank of nature's intelligence, recording every thought and event throughout history, a super-coherent, info-sensitive, reciprocating ether, further described in chapter ... I developed this subject later on. Ian Stevenson, the famous parapsychologist who spent decades studying transmigration scientifically, came to embrace the Akash as a working intellectual model to explain individuated transcarnational recollection. Leading thinkers in science such as Carl Sagan, Michael Newton, Nikola Tesla, Erwin Laszlo, Dayton Miller, and James DeMeo, Rick Strassman, Lynn McTaggart, Richard L. Thompson, and Michael Cremo have all referred in their writings, directly or indirectly, to the field, the etheric substrate, or Akashic field, or A field, as a medium for information transfer. And we're talking about information beyond death. Because someone is reciprocating with us by the fact that each time we reincarnate, our bodies reflect our consciousness. That's a pretty intimate form of reciprocation, don't you think? Way beyond. In fact, in Stephen Hawking's article on why he doesn't believe in God anymore, he basically does a 180-degree turn. In some of his other books, he said, if we could crack the grand unified theory, the theory of everything, then we might know the mind of God. But it ain't so cheap, Dr. Hawking. You can't muscle your way into the truth. And physics, again, can only describe effects. It can't describe causality. So the Akashic field serves as a satisfactory theoretical model, a means of comprehending the anomalous persistence of particle and cognitive non-locality. Now, this is getting a little bit wordy, but...
Technical.
Huh?
Technical.
Okay. Particle non-locality is a problem in quantum mechanics that they've observed where they see that an electron seems to be in two places at once. Right? And they've also